Jason, you've been talking about the reputational danger to Facebook for a while now around privacy issues. Now this latest thing seems to be less about new privacy issues, more about the way management has responded internally to those things. What do you make of the best way for Facebook to work its way out of this stage?
Well, this is a pretty serious crisis. If you look at the stakeholders involved, shareholders obviously no longer want to hold the stock, and you're seeing the stock collapse. And if you look at employee morale, it's incredibly low, and founders who sold their company to Facebook, to Zuckerberg, and made billions of dollars have been incredibly critical of Mark Zuckerberg, which is pretty incredible when you think about it. You give somebody a couple of $1 billion and then they criticize you on the way out the door. It's pretty unheard of. But advertisers still love the platform. So anecdotally, the companies I work with, private companies, it is the only game in town to reach users at this level of scale. And one has to wonder if the fourth constituent, which is governments around the world, are going to put up with their democracies being compromised. So you put those four stakeholders together, this is a true crisis for Facebook. And I think this could be, it's possible, maybe not probable, but possible, this could be their AOL peak, their Yahoo peak. Those companies peaked with hundreds of millions of users, in AOL's case 30 million plus paid users, and it took a decade or two for those companies to deprecate. Facebook's a whole different scale. It's 2.5 billion people, so I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon, and the advertisers still love it, and the advertisers are going to always go to the platform that has the lowest customer acquisition cost. But this is a crisis amongst the executives and the people who work there. And I think people are starting to realize that net, this is not a positive for society. And so put it all together, you don't want to own the stock and you don't want to work at the company. So that's pretty dark when you think about it. I don't know that there's an easy solution other than grinding it out for the next 3 or 4 years. Just like they did with the mobile problem. They couldn't figure out mobile advertising and they figured that out. So maybe they'll figure it out. But I think this could be peak Facebook right now.
Joel, it seems like all of this hinges around consumers, right? And we don't really necessarily see very many signs that consumers are jumping off the platform. I mean, monthly active users in this latest quarter continued to grow, albeit at a much slower pace. If they continue to have people signing into Facebook, using its other social media accounts, doesn't that mean that longer term they're going to be able to weather through this storm and continue to attract more and more advertisers and thus make more and more money?
Yeah, potentially. But I do think if you go out and you talk to especially younger generation, of the population, there is increasing frustration with the popularity. And I think that's why Zuckerberg has realized that they really have to monetize and ramp up their advertising on Instagram stories as quickly as possible. And the issue is advertisements on Instagram monetize at a 30% lower ratio than news feeds. So there's a real risk that there could be a saturation problem on Instagram very, very quickly, and which could turn away their user base. And I think that's the million-dollar question Jason touched on as well. There is a increasing view that the platform is becoming very toxic, and I think a lot of people with younger kids hope that social media overall looks a lot different than it currently does 10 years down the road.
You got that absolutely right.
Yeah.
Jason, you're good at distilling binary outcomes. The other day it was about Netflix and Disney users 5 years down the road. So I'll ask you, Sandberg out, positive for the stock or a negative?
Yeah, that's a great question. The Sandberg-Zuckerberg partnership has been legendary. Sandberg so politically savvy and Zuckerberg so ruthless in building the product. And that was a really powerful dynamic. But I think one person has to stay and one person's going to go. So to me, that means Zuckerberg stays. He's the God King, and he's got all the power and the shares and the voting. And probably Sheryl will exit the business in the next year or so in some way to then go work on her political career. So will the stock go up? It shouldn't, because she's actually a net asset to the company. You might see some reaction that it goes up, on the announcement, but I don't think long-term it's good for the company at all, because she was the rails in that company of kind of maybe reining Zuckerberg in a bit. I think without her there, Zuckerberg could make even bigger, more colossal mistakes. I mean, she might have been on the edges a bit of an enabler, and maybe she should have put her foot down and not let him do certain tactics where they compromise people's privacy. But yeah, losing her would not be good for the company, but it might actually make the stock go up in the short term.